Good evening. This is John Farmer, Chair of the Planning Board. Welcome to the October 27th, 2020 Planning Board meeting. As a preliminary matter, uh, as I said, I am the Chair of the Planning Board, and with me I have Aaron Henry, Josh Morris, and David Fields as support staff from the Town Planning Division. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jim Sears,
Present.
Peg Zawinski,
Present.
Lou George,
Present.
Tori Adler.
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Aaron Henry,
Here.
Josh Morris,
Present.
David Fields.
Present.
And Josh, if you can help me just confirming who is going to be speaking on the various applicants tonight. I see a number of people who are logged in. Can you just confirm that all the speakers are available?
It appears at this time there might be a straggler or two, but it appears that at this moment that everyone who indicated to me in the prior week who wished to participate is present.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Danvers Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberation of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comments. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening remotely via the WebEx app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. A few meeting ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to converse with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email address for public comment.
Mr. Chairman? John, it looks like your audio dropped out.
John.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like maybe we lost your audio.
David, I'm not sure if we can ask somebody to step in and
Can you hear us? Hello, John. Can you hear? We can't hear you.
He can hear us. I don't think we can hear
Okay,
him. Looks like he's signing off.
I chatted to him.
Okay.
So he's rebooting.
In the meantime,
2020.
Mr. Sears, as clerk, if you'd like, you could continue the meeting on while Mr. Farmer reboots. Up to you. I think the first item on is the performance guarantee for 20 Locust Street.
Okay, let me just get that up. Do you have something for me to read? You can post it, David? Or
let me take a look. I mean, it's not a hearing or anything. We could just essentially open it up to the applicant's attorney.
I'm back. Sorry about that. So it sounds like my mic went dead.
That's correct.
So Jim, if that happens again, feel free to, step in like you did the last time. So, I mean, really what I don't know when it went out, but I was just reading the governor's order and some of the ground rules was, do I need to repeat that, David, or should we start the meeting?
You were pretty well most of the way through. I'd say you were 3/4 there. If there's a concluding paragraph that you just want to go over, that'd be fine.
Okay. Were the ground rules understood? Did I get through the ground rules?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so the last part of it was for items with public comments. We have established an email address for public comment at danversmass.gov. This email address is shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents may email comments and they will be provided read out loud after staff has confirmed the names and address. All emails must contain the date and phrase planning board in the subject line. Finally, each vote taken tonight will be conducted by roll call vote. So why don't we turn to the first item on the agenda, which is 11 and 20 Locust Street, request by Tom Carnavale to establish a performance guarantee for incomplete site improvements for the mixed-use building at 11 and 20 Locust Street, map 43, lot 147 in 162. So I'll turn it over to the applicant. I believe Attorney McCann is representing the applicant.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Also on the meeting tonight is the applicant, Tom Carnavale. And we have been working with planning staff and the building inspector's office for the last couple of weeks to establish a bond amount so that we could come before you tonight to request the establishment of a performance bond for incomplete site work so that the property, which is ready for occupancy, can proceed forward for occupancy. This has been a wonderful project. As you know, those board members who were on during the initial approval of this project at 20 Locust Street, which was the revitalization of an old industrial building into residential housing and commercial uses on the first floor. It's ready for occupancy, and we're quite excited about that. Given the time of year where we're at right now, there are some things that need to be done. It is primarily site work in the nature of repairing some pavement work, installing some granite curbing in a few areas where non-granite, bituminous type of curbing was installed, and so we need to replace that, and landscaping. And so we received, as I said, we were working with planning staff, and we certainly appreciate the time that they put into this project and establishing the list of items to be completed. We've been working through that, and we submitted last Thursday a response that followed the planning staff's comments, which were also a culmination of department comments as well. And we submitted all of the items that need to be completed, again, in the nature of pavement repairs, primarily, and landscaping. Those are the biggest items. And we came up with an itemization of the work to be done at $62,954.30. And so we are here tonight requesting that the board establish that performance bond. And if the board does take that action, the developer will post the bond with the planning department, and that will allow issuance of occupancy permits. That's it.
Great, thank you. So why don't I open it up to the board for questions? Tori, why don't we start with you tonight?
Sure. So there are a lot of different items here, and I took some time to review all the comments on the site. It looks like there were some comments from the staff that weren't fully satisfied, but maybe David or Josh or Aaron could clarify whether the staff felt like their comments were fully satisfied.
Mr. Chair, I can address that if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Sorry, pardon me. Yeah, Tori, the list that was established were the outstanding items that they're requesting to provide surety for. So we're satisfied with everything else that was done, but for the items on the list. So once the surety is established, and from our end, we can, well, the building office can issue a temporary certificate of occupancy for them. So we're okay on our end if this process goes forward.
Okay, thank you. And do we know how long it will take to complete all these items?
I would ask for a completion date of June 15th, because we're talking of 2021. I suspect it's going to be completed in advance of that. But when we're talking about plantings, we don't know what the spring is going to be like, what the winter is going to be like.
Yeah.
Mr. Carnevale wants to get it done as quickly as he can, but of course he wants to plant so that the plantings will survive. So I would request a completion date of June 15, 2021.
Yeah, it all sounds reasonable to me. This is right at the end of my street, and it's a big improvement on what was there before. And yeah, I don't have a problem with this.
Okay, great. Lou?
Yes, just with respect to the completion date, so the anticipated completion date of June 15th, does staff have any, staff is okay with that anticipated date? It seems reasonable, but just to check.
Sure, Mr. George, that date's reasonable for us. Again, as pointed out, the landscaping would be the critical issue there. And then we're coming up on a paving moratorium pretty soon too. So.
Sure. No, that's fine. I have no further questions. I think this seems fine with me. Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, looks like we lost John again.
I would just comment that I go by there every day. It looks great. I think it's a great improvement and a great project. I'm all set. Peg?
I feel the same. I can't believe it's the same building we walked through a number of years ago. It's beautiful. How is the interest in renting apartments?
Very, very good.
Okay.
I think he's got some very anxious tenants.
Great. Great. Looks good. It's great job. So I'm for the performance bond.
Great. Sorry, it sounds like this platform has been troubling for me. I apologize to everyone on the board. I don't know why. I'm having problems with this particular platform. So, Peg, I'm sorry. So, Jim, did you have a chance to comment?
Yeah, everyone's commented, John, except you, I think.
Okay. I mean, I have no problem with this. I'm more curious of when the applicant expects the building to be fully tenanted, just for informational purposes and for the people who are watching from home. Can you comment on the status of the leasing activity?
The leasing activity has been very good. Tom, you're on this link. Do you want to comment on leasing?
Yeah, I think now that we can actually give them a date to say, let's go, I think it'll really pick up. There's been a lot of activity though.
Good. Well, I have no other comments or questions. So is there a motion to accept this proposal for the bonding requirement for the applicant?
So moved.
Motion by Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second?
Okay, second by Tori. So we'll do the roll call vote. Tori?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
And I'm in favor of the bonding. So good luck to the applicant, and hopefully you'll lease it very quickly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, proposed rezoning, landowners petition for amendment to the Danvers zoning map to rezone the following 3 parcels of land from resident 3 zoning district to commercial 1 C1 zoning district. 490 Maple Street, assessors map 18, lot 28. 492 Maple Street, assessors map 18, lot 27. And 500 Maple Street, assessors map 18, lot 25. Attorney McCann?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the property owners, Scott and Priscilla Christensen, who couldn't be here tonight. They are working tonight. Joanne Geary, who is out of town, and Richard Warren. And Mr. Warren is on the call this evening. And we have filed a zoning amendment to be heard at the special town meeting coming up in November on the 16th to request a zoning change for the 3 parcels 490, 492, and 500 Maple Street from the R3 zoning district to the C1 zoning district. We started this process back in 2017, 2018. We had staff meetings back at that time with then Planning Director Karen Nelson and Rich Maloney to talk about the potential for rezoning these parcels. Prior to that, as you may recall, the Planning Department on its initiative rezoned a section right prior to this as you're heading west on Maple Street. Right after Supino's restaurant, there's a couple of parcels. Those were rezoned a few years back as a planning and department initiative to the Highway Corridor Zoning District. And when I met with planning staff back in 2018, it was thought that probably that prior zoning amendment should have carried a little further down Maple Street. And at that time, the discussion was that it would be a planning department initiative to rezone these 3 parcels that we're talking about tonight to the Highway Corridor Zoning District. That didn't proceed forward. There were some staffing changes, etc. So back about a year ago, October of last year, I got together with Aaron Henry and David Fields, and we talked about this again as to whether we can proceed forward with the rezoning. And Aaron and David thought that maybe Highway Corridor was not the right rezoning for these 3 parcels because they are so small in size. So in working with planning staff, I've had 3 conversations and meetings with planning staff to come up with our proposal, which is a property owner proposal to rezone these 3 parcels from the R3 zoning district to C1, which seemed to make the most sense. What we have now for these parcels are 3 very small parcels. They do not come close to meeting the lot area requirement of the C3 zoning district, which is 30,000 square feet. These parcels each have about 1,200 square feet, 8,600 square feet, and about 17,000 square feet. So these are very small parcels to be zoned R3. The 3 parcels are also mixed use. One of them is a single-family home now on a 12,000 1,200 square foot lot. The second parcel is a mixed use. It has part residential, part post office. And the third parcel at 500 Maple Street is the largest of the parcels, but that, interestingly enough, received a use variance as a sales office back in 1961 when residence districts allowed use variances. Town council has given the building inspector an opinion that because use variances are no longer allowed to be granted in a residence zoning district, that property is stuck with a very strict sales office and really can't be used for anything else other than a single family home on a very small lot that doesn't comply with the zoning district's requirements in the C3 zoning district. So these three parcels are very unique. They're too small to be residence 3. They're really not in an area that is conducive to large single family homes now anyway. So the C1 zoning district seems to be the most appropriate zoning district for these three parcels. It will give these landowners some reasonable options going forward for the use of their property that will comply with the zoning. If these are rezoned to C1, there is no minimum lot area. There's no minimum frontage requirements in the C1 zoning district. So the lots become conforming dimensionally, which is helpful. And then the uses that we can make of these properties from a C1 district permittable uses really falls into what these parcels should reasonably be used for. And the types of uses we're thinking about for these parcels are small personal service types of businesses, which are permitted by right in C1, small offices, a CPA office, a small travel agency, perhaps if we're allowed to travel at some point in the future, a small IT business, small retail sales, a small cafe, a little trade shop. Those kinds of things are what we're thinking that are permitted in C1, would fit well within this zoning district, within this neighborhood, which is very mixed use at this point, and would really make a reasonable use and reasonable options for these landowners. So that's what the proposal is. I do have, I can answer any questions. I've got a graphic of the area if you wanted to see that, that I can share my screen on that. But it's pretty straightforward, and it's been a long time coming with trying to find some options for these three landowners. And we would request a favorable recommendation to town meeting from the planning board.
Great. I mean, Nancy, if you wouldn't mind, just for the people watching at home, if you could screen share that map, and then I'll ask the board to ask questions, just so that people can have a reference point, if that's
all right,
acceptable to you.
I can share my screen. Can you see it?
Not yet.
Uh-oh. Maybe I don't know how to do this. Let's see. Let me try this again. Okay, so.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming now, it looks like.
Can you see that?
I think yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So right along here, this is Route 1. This is Route 62. Right here.
Yeah.
We have Stop and Shop gas station is here. Supino's. And these are the three parcels that were rezoned to highway corridor on a planning department initiative a few years back that have some mixed uses in here. This area here is all Hawthorne West zoning district. And as we continue up along 62, these are the parcels that we're talking about. This first parcel right here is 490, and that has about 1,200 square feet, and that is a single-family home. The next parcel is the post office, and it's mixed residential commercial. And then 500 Maple is right here. This is the one that was the subject of the use variance back in 1961 for a very limited office type of use. In between here, this parcel right here is owned by the town for town electric, and this also is a town parcel. And I believe this back here is potentially the rail trail extension. So these parcels are interestingly situated. I also added in to this map, these yellow highlighted areas are the highway corridor. Hawthorne West is here, and then the green is Industrial 1. So we have an interesting mix of a variety of different zoning districts right in this area, and we are proposing to add C1 to these parcels here because it seems to be the most appropriate use as you're going along here, flanked by town-owned parcels. Across the street, this is a big office complex here. State parcel is located here. So that's these are the three parcels we're talking about, 1, 2, and 3. We did talk about adding in the town-owned parcels when I met with David Fields and Aaron Henry, but I believe the choice for the town was to not add those two in.
Great. Thank you. Jim, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, the only concern that I had is that their lots are very small. If we're going to do C1, we know that C1 has allowed a lot of density on Cherry Street. So I'm just concerned about that for the size of the lots are so small. It is interesting because you do have the town land, and if you have the rail trail there, maybe the town could put some type of rest stop or something there that could tie into it. But I'm just a little concerned about the extra density that's provided by C1. So maybe there's a reason for that. If we could hear from staff.
And I would just add to that, well, right now the parcels are zoned for 30,000 square foot lots, and they don't even come close to that. The C1, any use that we would want to put there would be a change of use, so it would have to go through site plan approval. And the size of the lot is also going to be self-regulating as far as the uses that are going to go in there, because parking will have to be provided. The planning board will certainly see to that. And so there will be a review process for any use that goes in. It would have to go through site plan approval.
No, I understand that. So I'm just wondering how we came up with C1 as an alternative, and how do we get beyond a spot zoning argument? I know we talk about this a lot, and I forget your rationale for saying it's not spot zoning or that was done away with, but refresh my memory if you would.
Were you asking me, or was that David?
Whoever wants to take it. I know you have a response to it, Nancy. I've heard your response before.
You want to hear my response to it? I'm
David,
sorry.
do you want to?
Sure, I can jump in here. So I guess the initial response to the contract zoning, which would be normally called spot zoning, is no longer an issue if you're going to town meeting, because the public body has deliberated, discussed the matter, and voted on it appropriately. So it happened in a public forum. If you go back to the C1, I think Aaron and I thought it was a more appropriate use than the highway corridor, because if it was placed in highway corridor, the lots would become as much, if not even more, non-conforming than they are in the R3. So the lot sizes there are much larger. So to get closer to conformity, C1 is a better fit for those, at least we thought, than highway corridor, which frankly, most of the uses require larger parcels in any event. So the property owners may not end up in any better of a situation.
And I think if I can chime in on that, I would just add that the other concern we had with the larger commercial zoning district than C1 is that if we zone them into non-conformity, then really the principal permitting route will become a use variance. And we wanted to try to provide a different path than the use variance. You know, those should be held out for exceptional moments when relief is, you know, very, very difficult. And I think that we had other districts available that give us the site plan review authority on whatever comes next and reduces the number of nonconformities was also critical to the permitting path.
Okay. Thank you.
So before I turn to Peg, Nancy, is there any way you can stop sharing your screen? I guess it's a challenge for the recording that's going on to the public. Great, thank you. Peg, you're next.
I have no problem with this. We have 3 small parcels stuck on Maple Street. I do believe that the type of use that will go in there will be dictated by parking, as Attorney McCann said, parking and other things that the planning board may want there under site plan. Seems like the C1 is a good way to go, so I'm fine with this.
Great, thank you. Lou, you're next.
Yes, just a question, I guess, for Attorney McCann as well as for staff. So I noticed that, for the first 2 parcels, so 490 and 492, so they are obviously they are contiguous. So in terms of what would be, I know we're looking at C1. What would be the sort of the I guess the largest use that could be potentially on those properties, assuming that assuming maybe that those properties would be developed together?
Well, I guess it would depend on the type of use, and again, it would have to go through site plan approval. So if you add those 2 together, they're still only about 10,000 square feet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Combined together, so you could do a small office. 10,000 square feet, you'd need what? Certain number of parking spaces.
Right.
For that, you'd have to have some landscaping, presumably, things like that. So even if you add them together, it wouldn't be very big.
Okay. Thanks. Does planning staff have any comments with respect to that as well, in terms of sort of the combine of the properties?
Sure. Lou, I think Attorney McCann's correct in that, I guess if we're looking down the road towards either detriment or betterment, the size of the parcels do preclude certain uses right off the bat still. So, you'd be hard pressed to get a convenience store with a gas station or something like that, even if that were allowed, just given the circulation that needs to occur on site. They're, if you notice from the map too, they're mostly triangular shaped lots.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really would limit even still what they could do, but not as much as they're limited today.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. And is there, Attorney McCann, have you had any, issues, concerns with respect to abutters in the area?
No, because we don't have any direct abutters other than the town.
Yep. Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Tori?
I think I'm okay with this. It's kind of a unique area, and this seems like as appropriate a change as I could imagine.
Okay. Before we open up to the public, my only question, I guess this is for staff, what what is the final approval process for this change?
Ultimately, it would be the town meeting vote.
Okay.
Again, whenever a project does come forward, the route would vary. Either could be the zoning board, most likely the planning board, but that would be after the rezone.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So was anyone from the public, David or Josh, interested in speaking on this application?
I don't have any emails, but I believe we have 2 members of the public. I'm not sure if they wanted to speak on this particular item.
Right.
It doesn't appear that they do. We didn't receive correspondence that they do.
Okay. Any emails? No emails tonight? Okay.
No emails so far.
So the action item that is being requested to the planning board is what, David?
A favorable recommendation to town meeting to approve the request.
Okay, which most likely would be the annual town meeting?
This upcoming November 16th.
Oh, it's going to be on
Fall
the
town meeting.
November 16th one. Okay.
Correct. We would need to close the public hearing if there's no comments, and then
Okay.
you can take your vote.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing for Maple Street.
Second.
Okay. So let's do a roll call vote. Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Peg,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. Is there a motion to make a favorable recommendation to the Finance Committee, David, or is that what we're doing?
Would be to town meeting itself. The recommendation. to
Town meeting itself, okay. So is there a motion to, for a favorable recommendation to the next town meeting in November?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
second, oh,
Right, second by Lou. Roll call vote, Tori,
Yes.
Lou? Peg,
yes,
okay, Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. So, good luck.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, the next public hearing is item 3 on our agenda, proposed zoning amendment to the Town of Danvers zoning bylaw, which includes administrative, Section 2, site plan approval, Section 4, definitive, Section 40, character-based zoning district, CBZD updates, new civic space zoning district, as well as an update to the cluster development bylaws. Overall, the proposed zoning amendments by planning staff. A more detailed summary of the proposed zoning amendment can be found in the official legal advertisement. So, David, I'll turn this over to you unless someone else is going to present this.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much for having us. I just wanted to start off for those viewing at home, going over what has happened to date. So we opened the public hearings on these items on September 22nd. They were previously reviewed by the Board of Selectmen on September 15th. We continued to both planning board meetings in October, this being the final one. So the next item up after tonight would be to visit the Finance Committee. That will be November 5th, I believe. Yes. And then it would be off to town meeting in the fall for November 16th. So tonight, in theory, will be the final public hearing for the planning board, should you see fit to close them. And with that, I just wanted to jump in. I know we covered a lot of material the last several meetings. I think we actually started at the beginning of September, but it wasn't officially a public hearing. We had a few changes and minor tweaks based on comments we heard, mostly from board members and one from the public. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Yep.
Just so everyone at home and the board see those changes. Can everybody see that?
mhm,
All right. So in section 2, administration, which I believe is up for consideration as Article 3, the Board of Selectmen, notably the chair, requested that we change the violations section from essentially the way it reads now is you are subject to a fine if there's a violation, to you may be subject to a fine of up to $300. So instead of it being a guarantee, you know, we've noticed the violation, you get fined, which is the way it's written now. He wanted to add a clause where effectively the building inspector would have the latitude to determine whether or not it warrants the full fine, and or if it's a verbal warning first, or they're just trying to work through it. So we did add that language. It's up here on the screen under number 2.5 violations. Happy to take any other questions or feedback on that. It's pretty
I was
straightforward.
just going to chime in quickly, David, if I may, that the building inspector currently uses a progressive system. So usually you get your warning, then you might get $100 if it continues, and then you get to 300 eventually. I will say I don't think we do a lot of this, and it usually doesn't get past the written warning, the verbal warning. But again, this just better reflects current practice here in town.
Yeah, and I think that sliding scale comes from code violations en masse. I don't know if it's specific to the way he does the zoning violations, but in any event, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen thought we should include this to give the building inspector a little bit more flexibility. Is there any comments or questions?
Any questions from the board?
Nothing?
Nope.
All right, we can move along. I'm taking that as tacit interest and approval there.
Okay.
I'm going to close this one out. Give me one moment. The next change was to site plan, which we discussed last time for section 4. And I'll share my screen again just so everyone can see. Okay, so really the only changes from the other draft that we had been previously working off of was recommendation from member Zelinski to remove the word development from pretty much most of the sections that occurred 2 or 3 times, I think, here under letter E for number 6 and letter E for number 7. So based on that recommendation, we removed those. It reads now just solely structures. I did also change down below in letter I under number 7 to read the zoning bylaw instead of this bylaw. It was a little confusing where you didn't know if they were talking about just this section of the bylaw or the bylaw in its entirety. Moving on, the only other change was the addition of member George's request to include nuisance and fumes, which were in the previous bylaw. So I added a section, noise and fumes. I added a section just called nuisance. And really it just reads to protect adjacent properties from noise and fumes and smells, really with the intent to not create an unhealthy environment for any property abutters or anybody in the general area. So that was a good addition. Nothing else has changed to the criteria. We still have lighting and public safety bookending both parts of that section. And then under the waiver section, we also realized we needed to add a waiver specifically for off-street parking standards because we would like to move it out to the general section of the bylaw as opposed to housed solely in section 4, which is site plan. So those were the only changes on site plan from the previous version that you had already had. Happy to take questions or comments on that.
Any comments from the members of the board?
Thank you.
Okay, I think you can move on, David, to the next section.
All right. So the only other edits that we had from the documents we already got was a change to, I'll share my screen, section 40 definitions. This came about after our last meeting. Joshua and I had worked with attorney Goldstein from Beveridge and Diamond. He had a few edits to development site, which is currently housed in section 22, the Maple Street overlay. It was one of the definitions that we were pulling out along with all the definitions. We're recommending taking everything out of 22 for definitions and putting it into section 40. So since we're in there, we're modifying it anyway. We had no problem with the edits. We were happy to take a look at them and we basically agree with Mr. Goldstein. I think the ultimate objective of what he's trying to do is to state through this definition, if you are utilizing the overlay, and specifically the overlay on Maple Street, for a single project under your development site, that you're utilizing the overlay and you're not mixing in existing or new industrial 1 uses into that pro forma. So you wouldn't be able to come in with one single site and say, I'd like to do mixed use in one building and I want to put a large industrial warehouse right next to it. Really, I think it's to keep the continuity of the streetscape, and I think the original intent of the overlay. Sorry, it sounded like Mr. Henry may have something else to add there.
No, I apologize, but since you gave it to me, yeah, I think, again, it was just that we don't want you within a specific development mixing in I-1, which I think is the intent. If you want to parcel off something and do an I-1 development on that site, there's nothing we can do to stop you from doing that. But within a, I'll just say the conceptual rectangle that you're proposing development in, if you're going into the overlay, then all the development in that area, in that envelope, must be consistent with the overlay.
Yeah, so I think that was it there for the edits. I believe I sent these out in the packet with the exception of administration. But happy to take any questions on that definition change if anybody has any.
Questions on that definition change from any of the board members?
All right,
Okay.
I don't have any emails on any of this either, so not sure if we'd like to proceed from here.
Was there anyone that from the public that wanted to speak? Nothing, you said, David?
I don't believe anyone that is on the call currently wants to speak on this matter.
Okay. So is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, let's do the roll call again. Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. Close the public hearing. Is there a motion to forward this to town meeting, David, or finance committee with a positive recommendation, or both?
You could do both. I mean, ultimately, the one that matters for us is a motion to recommend it to town meeting. And that's Articles 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the fall warrant.
All right, so why don't we make the motion to for a favorable recommendation to town meeting? Is there a motion for that
So moved.
action? Second? Is there a second? Okay, let's do the roll call again. I'll start with you, Jim.
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Dory,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. Good work, David. Is there anything more that we need to add, or we're pretty well ready to go now?
There's one other matter. Again, I'm bringing up now. It's not a practice that we've chosen in the past. I included a planning board report in the folder in the packet. It's part of the requirement for the state filing. The planning board can either give a verbal report or a written report to the state. If you've all had a chance to take a look at the report and didn't have any changes with it, you could vote that you accept the planning board report as written if you'd like. I'd leave it up to you to deliberate on how you want to handle that. I think we wanted to introduce it this year and maybe make it a thing that we're doing going forward, where we could do a written report as opposed to just addressing it on the floor.
Okay, that's fine. Has everyone had a chance to read that report? I saw it. I had no comments, but is there other members of the board that have everyone had a chance to see it? Are there any comments or questions for David?
Well, Mr. Farmer, if I may, I think, again, just to underscore what David's saying, I think this is one of the, going forward, we'd like to get this part of the process revised, I think, so maybe next year you'll see this sort of thing happen a little bit sooner or earlier in the process. I think ideally we'd like this report to be more of a guide that the selectmen and the finance committee will have at their disposal when they're doing their warrant review. And again, as David said, in the statute, the planning board has an obligation to make a referral to town meeting directly. And obviously the Danvers practice around town meeting is a little bit different, and we think we can kind of modify, introduce these small tweaks to that process in order to ensure that the town meeting, the selectmen, and the FinCom are receiving the guidance from the planning board on zoning matters as the statute contemplates. So again, we're trying to kind of go soft this year, but I would expect us to see us pushing this concept a little bit earlier in the process next year. But we can have that conversation at another date. But I just wanted to underscore kind of the importance of, for us, we think getting this into the flow, into the workflow.
Okay. I lost connection for a little bit there, Aaron. So does anyone have comments from the board?
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, just and perhaps Aaron can or David can address this just with respect to this to the summary. Would that be going, assuming that the board was approved it, would that summary go to would it go to FinCom as well as town meeting?
Yeah, and I'll jump in before Aaron does. We can send that to FinCom. If you voted through, they'll certainly be able to take a look at that prior to the town meeting.
Okay.
Because we'll be meeting with them in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you.
So what do you need, David, for an action item then?
Sorry, it would just be a motion to approve the planning board's report as written.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the report as written?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let's do the roll call vote. I'll start with you, Jim.
Yes.
Peg,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Tori,
Yes.
and I'm in favor as well. I think that's a nice addition to what we've been doing.
Sure.
So the next matter, item 4 on the agenda, other matters, 69 North Street, request by Mary McGillicuddy for endorsement of Form A plan to create 6 new lots at 69 North Street, map 15, lot 27. And I believe Mr. Griffin is going to be presenting on behalf of the applicant.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Yes, that was the plan. This is David here. It does not look like Mr. Griffin has joined us at this time. I know he had a previous meeting, so he asked to go last. I think we just moved a little bit quicker than he did. So rather than wait for him, if you'd like, I can share my screen and put the plan up so everyone can see it.
Yeah, why don't we?
I'll let you take it from
Yeah, why don't
there.
we do that, David? Yeah.
Everyone see that?
Yeah, can you blow it up just a bit or no?
I think I can. There we are. Scroll down a little bit. So it's tough to get the whole thing in the shot, but
Okay.
it's pretty much there. The words down at the bottom there read North Street for anyone who's looking for a geographic marker. So effectively, if you'd like, Mr. Chair, I can walk through.
Yeah, go right
the
ahead,
town.
David.
Sure.
Yep.
So this is a large parcel that's come up for discussion recently with us. I used it in one of my designs for the cluster development bylaw. It's a 69 North Street is what it's commonly known as. It's just about a 10-acre parcel. I think it might be a little under. And currently, there's a historic old home with a fairly large barn on the west side of the property and an existing garage. the applicant is seeking to divide the property up via A&R or approval not required into 6 conforming lots. As you can see, quite a few of them are well oversized. That has to do with the lack of frontage without putting in a subdivision road, as well as the lot regularity factor that we have in the bylaw. But that being said, they all meet zoning as far as we can tell, and the applicant has put our customary note on the plan that this does not constitute a recommendation on zoning itself anyway. So it's a fairly straightforward A&R as far as things go, just dividing up the larger parcel into 6 lots.
Okay. Questions from the board? I'll start with you, Peg.
I really have no comment. I mean, she has the space, she can divide up the lots. No comment right now. I hope she'd like to do cluster zone, though.
Okay. Tori?
Yeah, I feel much the same. The space is there. There's not a lot we can really do on this, I think.
Right. Lou, comments?
Yeah, no comments. I think the space is there, so I'm of the same view.
Jim, any comments?
I like it a lot better than the cluster plan. It is what it is. I mean, there's nothing much we can do on it because it is A&R, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I have no comments either, and I look forward to.
John, I think we lost your audio again.
We lost your audio.
Looks like Mr. Duggan may be trying to get our attention while John's dealing with that. Or he's showing us his great living room. Not a blue screen.
Can I jump in while we're waiting for John to return?
That's fine. Go ahead.
This is, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair or Vice Chair.
Clerk.
My name is Matthew Duggan, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I had a question about a piece of town property. I'm looking at Danvers Patriot Properties. I see there's 2 entries. One is for the applicant, Ms. McGilvery, but there's also an indication there's an abandoned roadway owned by the town of Danvers. Is that on your site plan that you have listed there?
Sure. Mr. Sears, with your permission?
Go right ahead. I didn't see it on there.
Sure.
Just
So,
an easement, but not a roadway.
there is a utility, I think it's a drainage easement for stormwater through the back. I think what Mr. Duggan's referring to on our, it's either the current GIS or the Patriot Properties database. There's a small triangle of land that's shown as a completely separate parcel, but it looks like it's owned by the town and it says abandoned right away. We had that same thought when they submitted the plan and started talking to us. We just wanted to cover all our bases at the staff level. So went back to the original county layout and then subsequently to Mass Highways layout. And what happened was when Route 1 and 95, the interchange went in, Mass Highway took over the complete stretch of North Street all the way to Locust. I'm assuming that little cutout triangle piece was for grading or equipment storage while they were doing work or something like that at some point. This was in 1966. Subsequent to that, they gave the layout back to the town. And so we ended up with what looks like an orphan parcel on our end, but is actually part of the layout for the right-of-way. So that's why it juts into the McGillivray's property. It's not a separate parcel, though. It's just part of the layout of the road. But had the same thought that you did, I think.
Well, it looks like it's about 13,000 square feet. So
yeah.
Is that something that we could use as open space, or perhaps sell it to this applicant if it doesn't really have much value, it seems like this would be an opportune time to maybe divest ourselves of this parcel. If it has, no use for the town either today or any time in the future.
I can't answer that on behalf of the town whether or not we'd want to divest. I would say the only part of the process we would be involved in is they'd have to create the parcel. So we'd have to separate that piece of land from the current right-of-way layout and sell it off. Actually, not dissimilar from the MassDOT proposal that was recently here. They would have had to create a separate parcel
That's
and
exactly
then
like
dispossess.
that.
Well, it's not exactly like that, but close enough for example purposes.
So it's more trouble than it's worth, perhaps?
I don't know about that. I don't think that the town had been looking at that small piece of land for any particular reason.
And
I think given
David,
that it's right of way.
David mentioned the drainage easement. At one point, and I don't want to muddy the waters with this comment, but I thought that our engineering may have a catch basin or some sort of, again, nothing that couldn't be figured out if that was really the desire to do so, but I believe there is a little bit of infrastructure on that parcel as well that would, again, have to be dealt with and might complicate the matter, but.
Now, just one more question. Is there wetlands on this 69 North Street? It sounds like there's some drainage issue going on there. I know that on the other side of North Street, that's very wet. That feeds down towards the high school. So is this something that restricts what can be built in these 6 lots, similar to what we saw at Beaver Brook Woods, where there was, like river bank kind of thing where it required lines to be drawn that could not, be developed or could not be disturbed, something along those lines?
So I guess I'll take that in 2 parts. They're showing, meaning the applicant is showing wetlands on the property towards the back there. I think what they're trying to show is an isolated wetland. They have not got an official delineation yet, so we don't know if it's connected to wetlands further north, meaning cardinal direction north, or not. But whoever subsequently buys that lot, and if they choose to build within 100 feet of that wetland, will have to get a delineation and determine the nature of the wetlands at that point. But it's a bit different than the subdivision you had mentioned in that these would just be straight building lots for houses. So as long as they're not building a home in the setbacks, it can go anywhere on those fairly large lots. But again, if where they want to put the house happens to be near what they're showing as wetlands, and those really are wetlands, then they'd have to file with the Conservation Commission.
And you said it was around 10 acres?
Yeah, I think they say 9.96 or something like that.
So one of the largest undeveloped parcels left in town. So too bad the town doesn't have the resources to actually purchase that. It's when you drive out North Street, that parcel is very attractive. It harkens back to an earlier time. So, all right, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
You're welcome.
So it doesn't look like Mr. Farmer's back on the call, but if the board is so willing, we'd just be looking for a motion to endorse the A&R plan.
Can I get a motion on that, please?
I move we endorse the A&R plan for 69 North Street.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Starting with Peg,
Yes?
Tori,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
and I would vote in the affirmative. Thank you. Next item for staff, future dates.
Future dates, okay. As I mentioned, we'll be at the Finance Committee for the zoning we just discussed in November. We don't have any development administration currently on for either November meeting. So unless there's a different or compelling reason to meet, the staff didn't have anything to discuss and applicants don't seem to be knocking the door down. So if the board so chooses, we do not have to hold a meeting in November.
Sounds good to me.
Wasn't sure if there'd be complaints or not. The next date we were looking at, we will need to meet the first meeting in December. That's December 8th.
Oh,
Then the second meeting in December does occur December 22nd. I believe in the past during holiday weeks when that meeting falls fairly close to what are traditional holiday times, we have not held that meeting. I can try to work with applicants should there be any. We don't currently have any to meet in January instead. I'm assuming the board would be in favor of that, although I don't want to assume too much.
fine with me.
Okay, well, so it looks like our current calendar would just be December 8th, and then we'll see in the new year after that.
I caught the last bit of your discussion as I came on a little bit early for the meeting regarding why the item got shot down at town meeting last night regarding the property next to Calitris. Could you quickly just summarize that?
The MassDOT proposal?
Yes.
Sure. Actually, Aaron Henry was at the Finance Committee meeting where I believe it was discussed at length. I'd asked him to join us.
Yeah, I think there was some conversation amongst a few of the FinCom members that they would have thought that the state would have been more generous in its offerings other than just coming to the town and just asking for the rezone as any other owner. And that, you know, as a potential partner with the town, there were disappointment that there was not more of an effort to reach out to the community and work with us to determine if there's anything else that we should be discussing during this. So basically it was the rezone piece may be acceptable to us, but we should be having another conversation about what else do we want to discuss as a community should this parcel flip. And I think that process would be probably led by the town manager and maybe the chair of the selectmen, I think is kind of how that was left. So I think their motion to refer back for further study was probably less of a zoning matter and more of a conversation that they'd like to have with MassDOT. And I think I don't recall what Mr. Bartha, if we've gotten off on doing that yet. I don't think we've begun that process, but I would expect that to happen once these two town meetings are concluded. And we have a little bit of bandwidth to begin that conversation with the state, of which the planning board will be kept apprised of as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, finally, we have the approval of the minutes from September 22nd. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
Any discussion, alterations? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
I move to accept the minutes of the September 22nd, 2020 Planning Board meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
All in favor? Tori?
Yes.
Peg?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. Any other items, David?
There's nothing else from us.
All right, do I get a motion to dissolve, to adjourn?
Just in time, I reconnected, Jim. Good job.
All right.
Mr. Sears just dissolved the planning board.
That's right.
Oh,
Motion to adjourn. Did you say yes, Peg?
I did.
And Lou seconded, I heard?
Yes, second.
All right. Good to see everyone. We'll talk to you later. Take care.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Good evening, everyone.
Have a good night.